Hey Year 12s, hope you're well. I am going to use this video to attempt to show you, I guess, ways that you can plan to write your paragraph. This is just to supplement what you're already learning in class. And so hopefully you'll find it a little bit helpful. So today we're going to look at how to write a paragraph on, I'm wondering if I can type, on leadership. So that's one of the key themes in our texts, so in Ransom and the Queen. And so when you get given an essay topic, you have to be able to explore the idea. So what that means is you are going to be looking at the similarities and the differences in the ideas of leadership expressed in the two texts, and also the way they are expressed. So basically you are looking at what is Ransom saying about leadership, what are all the different things that Ransom is saying, then what is the Queen saying about leadership, how are they different and how are they similar. So that's the task. In terms of the general structure for a paragraph, essentially you want your first sentence to be like a topic sentence. So it is a shared idea presented in the two texts. And then essentially you have to just talk about the first text and then compare it to the second text. So I'd like to say that there is a really rigid structure and, after one example you compare a similarity, but it doesn't actually necessarily work that way in every single paragraph. In some paragraphs you'll have heaps of similarities, and in some paragraphs you'll have heaps of differences. So this is just a general structure. But if you find that you start comparing the differences straight away instead of looking at the similarities, or you take a little bit of time to set up the historical context of your two texts, that's completely fine as well. So after your topic sentence, you talk about how one text displays that idea. Then how does the second text do that? And or is there a point of difference? What is the difference now that you've done the similarities? Are there any differences? And then you reiterate the shared message again at the end. So just to summarize, you've got a shared idea that is presented in both the texts. Dot points 2, 3, and 4, you are looking at similarities and differences. So you present how leadership is expressed in one text, then you compare it to the second text, and then dot point number 5 is you reiterate the message, the shared idea again. Okay, so if we are looking at leadership, what you are hopefully doing first is brainstorming. That's your first thing. So you have to think to yourself, what do I know about leadership in the two texts? And I've done my brainstorm and this is what I've come up with. So remember, some of these ideas can, even though they're on leadership, they can also tie into a secondary theme. So in your notes, hopefully, you can even add in secondary themes that your idea is tied to so that you remember it for next time. So some of the ideas that I thought were really interesting that I might talk about in my paragraph are the following. Leaders are worried about their legacy, especially when their dynasty or their reign is threatened, or they're going in, they're faced with a crisis. Leaders care to uphold traditions of the past. Leaders care about setting a perfect image. Grief or crisis can be a catalyst for leaders to seek change. And a leader is someone who authentically imagines new realities and makes decisions with humanity or with compassion or from the heart. That's a little bit jumbled, but then again, it's my brainstorm. These are the ideas I want to try and talk about. There are so many more ideas in terms of leadership that you might be able to talk about. could be how leaders care about their image. It could be what leadership does in terms of relationships with their family. There's heaps of things you can talk about with leadership. So don't think this is what you must talk about. These are just some things that I've come up with that I feel like I might have some examples. Always go to your examples. So it's in your best interest to find ideas that you've got quotes for. And so ultimately that's going to be the deciding factor, as well as its relevance to the prompt. And here our prompt is leadership. Okay, so I'm going to show you the paragraph that I've come up with. So the first dot point is my shared idea. So I have written this sentence. A leader faces balancing traditional roles of leadership and the importance of past protocols with innovating to shape the decisions of the future. That is my shared idea. Done. Next bit is how does one of the text display it? So as I kind of mentioned in class, ransom is our primary text. So you're most likely going to be starting off with ransom. So I've said here, ancient Greek society viewed the great Priam to be almost godlike in his kingly role, fixed and permanent and a ceremonial figurehead. So I'm showing how leaders were viewed at the time. Dot point number 3, how does the other text display the same idea? So I have to talk about how the queen also, how people viewed the queen to be ordained by the gods or whatever. This is similarly expressed by Queen Elizabeth, who has resolutely lived by the dictum of duty first, self second, and that her leadership role is God's will. So we are halfway through our kind of paragraph structure. So dot point number 4 is there a point of difference? So now that I've highlighted a similarity, and again, this is not prescriptive, there could be so many more other similarities. This is just what I've chosen to talk about right now. Let me just take that away. Is there a point of difference between the texts? A different way leadership is viewed, how leaders changed, what the consequence of their leadership is. So this is the difference I've come up with. The tragic death of Hector forces Priam to reflect over the destruction of the Trojan dynasty during his reign, as well as the legacy he will leave behind. Maloof employs, so this is really good to do, always talk about what the author is trying to do. Maloof employs the support and divine intervention of the goddess Iris to propel Priam to the conviction that the thing that is needed to cut this knot we are all tied in is something impossible, something new. Indeed, Priam's decision to throw himself into the unaccustomed empowers him, allowing him to feel bold and defiant in the midst of an unchanged existence. Maloof asserts how leaders must imagine new ways of leadership, often opposing the ingrained social ethos of the time. So this bit is talking about how Priam, as a leader, embraces change and embraces the unaccustomed. Whereas Priam boldly embraces change, Queen Elizabeth, however, is reluctant to symbolically be with her people in the wake of Diana's death, due to her fixed vision of what she believes to be the appropriate response of one in her position. Frears shows the Queen, ever stoic, to observe that while her rising unpopularity suggests a shift in values, she is unable to understand her people, as she believed her preference to keep her feelings to herself was what the people wanted of her Queen. Unlike Priam, she is disapproving of the lack of choice presented to her, and reluctantly and begrudgingly accepts the need to modernize after being confronted with heightened anti-royal sentiments from the British public. So the main difference here is that, and I'm about to finish, basically while Priam is embracing change, Elizabeth is kind of reluctantly doing so. I'm summing this up in my last sentence. Both Frears and Maloof showed the need for leaders to change to meet the demands of unprecedented times. Okay, thanks. Bye. Actually, I'm also back because I realized I've got 15 minutes. I think last time I feel like I only had 10, or maybe I had 15, and maybe I'm going crazy. So I'll just redo that last sentence. So both Frears and Maloof show the need for leaders to change in order to meet the unprecedented times, meet the demands of the unprecedented times in order to preserve their rule and relationships with the people. I've basically said here, both of them were like ordained to be leaders, and then when crisis hit, Priam's embracing change, whereas Elizabeth still resorts to what was always done in the past. But both of them either willingly or unwillingly come to the conclusion that modernization must occur and change must occur. And that's the summary of the paragraph. So to summarize how to write a paragraph, you are exploring the similarities and differences. The structure of your paragraph includes a shared idea that you reiterate at the end. And within your paragraph, you're talking about how the first text is similar to the second text and also how it is different. Then conduct a brainstorm in terms of the ideas, and in this case it's leadership, and follow the structure and you've got your paragraph. I guess the last thing to be aware of is it took me so long to write this paragraph, and I've just frozen my screen. It took me so long to write this paragraph, and it will take a while. The first few times you do it, you might not be super happy with it, but just keep going and keep at it because you'll get better and better. But just be really patient with yourself as well. All right, please let me know if you've got any questions. Thanks.